welcome back. And we're moving into our second conversation for today with the Pharmacy Association of Belize, and today they are celebrating World Pharmacy Day. We have with us on set Samira Gongora, who is a drug inspector with the pharmacy unit, and Beverly Coleman, president of the Pharmacy Association. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And thank you for being here. We got to say, first of all, happy World Pharmacy Day.
Thank you.
And let's just talk a bit about the role of the Pharmacy Association in Belize. You were here very recently when there was the Caribbean Network meeting here in Belize. But let's just get a quick refresher.
Thank you, Marlene. Thank you for having us. And as you rightly said, the Pharmacists Association of Belize played host to the Caribbean Association of Pharmacists in August of this year for their annual convention and annual general meeting. It was a lot of work, but it was truly worth it, getting to actually interact with our Caribbean colleagues, and besides that, forming valuable friendships, networking, and learning from each other. And on that note, I would like to say that our hearts and our heartfelt thoughts and prayers are with our Caribbean brothers and sisters who recently suffered, through the recent storms.
Yeah.
All right.
Now, World Pharmacy Day, or World Pharmacist Day, I should say, my apologies, is obviously a day meant to recognize the work and the contribution that pharmacists have within in Belize and across the world. Let's talk about the importance of having properly trained pharmacists and licensed pharmacists functioning in the country.
Well, it's very important because the role that pharmacists play is that they take care of our people. They take care of our communities. They need to be well trained and informed. They need to keep up to date with all the changing drugs and new drugs that are coming out.
Yeah.
So the Pharmacy Association plays an important role in doing continuing education, and also the Ministry of Health to inform our pharmacists of the new trends, so that they can keep up to date and inform the people.
There has been more recognition by the public on the value and the quality of the medication that they take, right? We say drugs and people think illegal, so let's say medication for now. As a drug inspector, what are some of the efforts that are currently in place to be able to address issues regarding poor quality drugs, regarding using medication perhaps that are not allowed to be in the country? And there are quite a number of areas we can go to, but I know you play a role in going in and ensuring people are getting what they should be getting.
Well, the drug inspector in the pharmacy unit focuses on importation. So we have recently teamed up with Customs Department and also the Custom Brokers Association, and the Ministry of Health now has access to Asikuda, so the ministry and the pharmacy unit has the authority to authorize what comes into the country and what doesn't, because we have the final say, because after selectivity is triggered in the Asikuda, we're the ones who decide. And in addition to that, the ministry is putting together their drug registry. So after, I think, the 1st of November, only drugs that are registered are allowed to come into the country. And the necessary documentation that we're asking for is for the importers to submit their GMP or the CPP, so that we could verify the quality that's coming in.
How is enforcement done in a scenario where, while there may very well be a specific list of products that can be brought into the country, there are still others that make it onto the shelves that are flagged?
Contraband or so forth, right. Well, there are other loops that they can come in. There is the contraband, like I said, and we're trying hard to combat that, where the inspectors actually go into the facility to check what they have. And they should have a valid invoice for everything that they're selling. So that verification is done at that point if it comes without us authorizing it initially.
Now, Beverly, as the president of the association, I know from previous conversation that you also speak to the public's recognition of pharmacists and their role, and also perhaps doing a bit of their own checks and balances. One, going to a licensed pharmacist, consulting with an actual pharmacist, and ensuring that the medication that they receive not only contraband but isn't counterfeit as well, right? So let's talk about that.
Well, I will pick up where Samira left off when you asked her the importance of having a licensed or a registered pharmacist attending to you. Basically, we have people's lives in our hands, and that is what it boils down to. And so you need to, as pharmacists, we need to know what we're doing. We need to know, because we are the experts where the medications are concerned. And we are not struggling, but we are vying to get in the rightful place in the healthcare team, because it is not a one-man job, and each of us have a very important role to play in that healthcare team. And the importance of having someone who is licensed, who is registered in our pharmacies, it speaks volumes. Because, as I said, it basically boils down to we have people's lives in our hands. And I always say that pharmacists are the last checkpoint before a patient receives a medication. And according to the laws, the laws that govern us and govern our practice in this country, a doctor may order a medication or write a prescription, and that prescription comes to us, and there is a problem with that prescription, and we dispense as is on that prescription, and anything happens to that patient, we are the ones that are held liable for it. It's not the doctor. According to the laws of our country, it's the pharmacist. So we play a vital role.
That being said, I find that to be rather interesting. How do you then marry the work of the pharmacist with that of the doctor? The doctor diagnoses and he prescribes. The pharmacist is actually the person who comes up with the medicine or the solution that is necessary to be dispensed. But at the end of the day, you're saying the liability falls on you should there be something that goes wrong with the patient. So how do you either marry the work of the two or complement the work of the doctor from that end?
Well, it's actually, Isani, it is complementing, because it is something that it is a network. You know, you have to build that network, you have to build that relationship where you can consult with that doctor and say, you know, bring up whatever is the problem with that prescription. And the end note is that if that doctor refuses to make a change on that medication, on that prescription, or to rectify whatever is the problem, we as pharmacists reserve the right to not dispense.
Providing that, I mean, because that's in terms of pharmacist intervention, and you go with your knowledge, you go with your information to show them what's the correct.
I've been to pharmacies where the pharmacist would call the doctor and consult, and that makes me feel good because I know they both have my best interest at heart. And I want to divert a bit to another issue, because and I know we're going to get into your activities very shortly, but it was something that I discovered very recently. You know, this also has to do with the Bureau of Standards, but it always concerns me when people receive medication that doesn't have directions in English. You know, you are left perhaps using your very weak Spanish if it's in Spanish, or if it's Indonesian or any other character that you may not be able to understand. You have no idea what you're putting into your body. Are there regulations in place as to what should be on a label of a box? And I'll give a very clear example. When you go to Mexico, whatever you buy, there is a sticker over the English words with Spanish to ensure that the people who are purchasing know what they receive. Do we have those regulations?
Yes, there was the food and drug regulation that was amended recently, and that involves the registration of pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
And in that law, it states that it must be in English and Spanish. If it's originally in Spanish, it must be in English as well.
Yeah.
Oftentimes you purchase like certain cough products and stuff like that where the labeling is in Spanish. And as what Marlene is saying, for those of us who are not strong in the Spanish language, it creates a problem in terms of being able to deal with the dosage or that sort of a thing.
Verify. Right. So, well, this law was just amended in July. So with the drug registry, we're putting things in place to ensure that everything that's on the market falls under that regulation.
And if I'm not mistaken, too, that law also speaks to labeling.
Right.
Where
it does.
there are certain criteria that the label has to meet.
Yeah. And that's why I knew the Bureau of Standards had spoken about being at a point of looking at that, and it really bothers me because some of the medication you get through your pharmacist, so they explain what should and shouldn't be done. But some of the over-the-counter stuff, you are really, and Spanish is, if you're lucky, because there are a lot of medication from other parts of the world that you don't even know the characters. You wouldn't recognize that too, because it's not written the way we're used to seeing it. So I'm glad to hear that much. But it definitely shows that there is some kind of cohesion taking place in understanding what needs to be done for the public. Let's come back to the day that you're celebrating. What is your theme for today?
Well, as we said, the theme for today is Belizean pharmacists contributing to the improving the health and wellness of our communities. And that is just a slight take on the theme that we celebrated the CAP conference under. And for the activities for this week, basically what we're asking our pharmacists to do is to engage with your communities, because pharmacists do play a vital role. And I tell anybody who will listen, ask your pharmacist questions. You don't understand, it is your right. Ask questions. So we're encouraging our pharmacists this week to engage with your communities, get a feel, get to know, your area where you work if you have not already done so. We have some pharmacists working in communities doing amazing work, And the highlight of the association's activities is on Saturday, we're holding our annual general meeting. So.
How active has the association been? I gather the Pharmacists Association isn't one that you hear about as often as any other organization or association out there. In terms of its membership, in terms of the work that the association has been doing, how active have you guys been?
Good question, Isani. Over the years, the main focus of the Pharmacists Association of Belize has been continuing education. We feel that it is very important that we keep our members updated because things change on a daily basis. So that has been the main focus, and maybe we're not out there, in the spotlight, but I like to think that we're like ducks on top of water, where everything looks nice and serene on top, but underneath, that's where the action is happening. For as many years as I can remember, the association has been advocating for the updating of our laws, because those are the laws that govern us as pharmacists and govern our profession.
Yeah.
And so those are the main focus that the association has been on for years, lobbying to get our laws updated.
Yeah. I recall the Pharmacy Association being very active when there were some appointments made for the drug inspectorate. And really, I think that was one of the times that people started to realize that you needed to have persons who understood and knew the profession to be in these particular positions. And we have heard many times about medication that's available, that's not available, of good quality, that's of bad quality. And so the people, you have the people's attention. What would you say, and you brought up a very important point about asking questions. What would you say is the biggest achievement you have made of recent in being able to improve the work of pharmacists or the service available to Belizeans?
I think the just being accessible. I think in the healthcare team that I spoke of, I happen to, and I may be biased, but I happen to think that pharmacists are the most accessible members of that healthcare team. We are the ones who, a lot of our patients feel, when they sit with the doctor, they feel rushed. And you know, right, and so patients would come to us and tell us things that they would never dream of telling their doctors. And then when we would ask them, so why you never tell your doctor that man I never want bad, you know? And so that is, again, that shows the importance of the link that we have in that healthcare team, where we can then either refer that patient back to the doctor or to any member of the healthcare team that they need referring to, and we can liaise with those members on our patient's behalf, because all of us on the healthcare teams are patient advocates, or should be patient advocates.
So, in addition to that, we also want to inform the patients that, you know, because sometimes patients come in and say, oh, I don't have the time. I already know. You know, give your pharmacist the time, if it even means coming back to consult, so that your pharmacist can advise you properly.
Yeah. Do you see a change in the culture, whether from the pharmacists and how they interact with the public, or how the public interact with the pharmacists?
There has definitely been a change. People come to you with all this knowledge that they gain from Google.
Dr. Google.
So yes, it has changed. You know, it has changed, and then being exposed to with social media and all that. People, when they come to you, sometimes they already have all this information, and so they're just coming to you now for verification, you know, for verification, and make us see if she know where she did that. Right.
Okay, so tell us about you're having a brown bag day today, you said?
Yes, we've been famous for Brown Bag Day, where the community can access the community pharmacies, and they can, the public health pharmacists, the hospitals, and they can bring in all the medication that they have had or had to verify if it's still viable, if they still need to take it or not, you know, and if the indication works for what they had thought it was given for initially. And there will also be a continuing education, several topics, because it's being done countrywide today.
Okay. All right, and as you pointed out, today is World Pharmacist Day, and you have your AGM coming up on Saturday and a number of activities throughout the week. Right,
because Thursday and Friday we'll be having a retreat for public pharmacists, a de-stress team building, because our pharmacists work hard, and so we need to show them appreciation.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us and letting us know how you have planned your week of activities. Happy World Pharmacist Day to you and to all the other pharmacists in the country. And remember to Keep in mind that today is brown bag day. You can take your medication to a public pharmacy and they will assess it for you. And also the AGM takes place on Saturday. Thank you.
Thank
you very much.
We're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we'll find out more about Sagicor's annual Phoenix Walk and Run. So stay tuned.